Hello there, and welcome to another episode of 3D Christianity. My name is John Hathaway, and I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins of American Christianity. This is part 2. We're going to be talking about idolatry. If you haven't already seen part 1, we talked about hypocrisy there, so I would encourage you to go watch that as well. But it doesn't really matter which order you watch it in, because we're not doing, this list is not in order of importance or significance or anything like that. So I would just encourage you to watch that if you haven't already. But today's video is about idolatry. And before we get into it, I just want to give you a quick reminder to subscribe to my channel, please, if you are not a subscriber already and you enjoy this content. And make sure you hit that bell notification as well so that you don't miss any future content. Also, be sure to like my video and comment your feedback. I always like to hear your thoughts. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so we're talking about idolatry. So what is idolatry? I think that basically what idolatry is, how we could define it, is making anything of equal or higher importance than God in our lives. And when we think of idolatry in like the traditional sense, like in the Bible, you think of like in the Old Testament, like the Israelites making a molten calf and worshiping it, or making idols of like Baal or these other different false gods and worshiping them, different things like that. And yes, that does still apply in like maybe some countries around the world. There might still be some idol worship going on, and maybe still a little bit also in America, but not with most of Christianity in America, at least, is not that specific type of idol worship. You could maybe get into that a little bit with like Roman Catholicism and stuff, but we're not going to be talking about that so much today. And I would encourage you to just read up on the subject of idolatry if you are like a Roman Catholic or something and you're watching this video. This video is not geared towards you, but I would just check what does the Bible say about worshiping like graven images and things like that, and maybe reconsider what you're doing and what you're being taught. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about this in the 21st century American sense of American Christianity. What are some things that we tend to idolize in America today? Some of those things would be like our identity, and I have a list here I'm going to go through. I'm just going to list them real quick, and then we'll talk about each one after that. So identity, our identity, who we identify as, what we identify as, things like that. We can definitely idolize those. Material possession is a big one. Ideologies or religion, we can have a tendency to idolize those things. We can idolize our accomplishments, our behavior or our lifestyle, and also sometimes we worship other people. Like we can put people up on a pedestal and worship them. So I'm going to go through this list and kind of just talk about each one of these individually, and then so the first one we're going to be talking about is our identity. Now, I know that there is like a huge identity crisis going on right now, especially in America and the countries in the western part of the world, where everyone is identifying as this or that. And we're not going to be talking about all of that, but when we're talking about it in the Christian sense, I think the thing that I've seen the most of, especially in like a lot of very conservative Christian churches and things like that, is getting wrapped up in politics and like, not worshiping necessarily, but effectively or functionally, lifting up that political party or your political candidate, or maybe the flag that you represent or something like that, and making it like of really high importance. And I've seen, and I know this sounds like, maybe it sounds crazy to some of you who are watching this, but in not just one of the churches I've been to, but probably more than half of the churches that I've been a member at in my life since I've been a Christian, probably more than half of them are like, probably most of them, to be honest with you, had some sort of idolatry of America in those churches, where I would see like they would not only just sing the national anthem, which, I mean, maybe there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's something that I don't care for and to see in church, singing the national anthem, but you know, making everyone having everyone stand to put their hand over their heart and look at the flag while you're singing the national anthem and all that. And then the Pledge of Allegiance, I've seen that done several times, like on when it's a Sunday close to a patriotic holiday like Memorial Day or 4th of July or Veterans Day or something like that. And I know this sounds like, maybe for some of you, if you grew up very conservative, or your church is like very pro-American, pro-military, things like that. I'm not making this video to say like that America's bad, or I'm against the military or anything like that. I'm not saying any of those things, but when you make that the focus of your church services, it definitely makes that appear like you're effectively putting those things in the place of God. When what is the church called to do? We're called to serve God. We're called to glorify God and magnify Him above everything else. We're not called to magnify our president or our flag or our nation or anything like that. Not that we can't have some kind of reverence for those things, but when those things become so sacred to you that that you make them of like such high importance, where they're like close to as important to God to you, then I think there's a problem, and you should probably do some self-reflection there. But yeah, we can get wrapped up in our identity. I'm not going to be talking about all the different ways we could do that, but the biggest example that I've seen personally is getting involved in like patriotism, extreme patriotism in church and stuff like that. I'm not saying you can't be a patriot or be patriotic. Whatever you do in your house or in your own life, that's fine. But I personally don't like when that's done in church. The second thing would be material possession. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but I think that it's definitely an issue for us, where a lot of times we can get caught up on having the nicest things, having whether it's a brand new car, or having really nice clothes, or the latest whatever gadgets are out there, watches, iWatch or Apple Watch, or the newest phone, the newest TV, all that kind of stuff, or just pursuing money and things like that. That's another type of material possession. And I'm not saying that any of those things in and of themselves are evil or wrong. Obviously, we need money to be able to get by in this world. It's money in itself is not evil, and most of those things that I mentioned are not evil in and of themselves. But when you idolize those things and you make those things of utmost importance in your life, that's a problem, and you should probably just change your focus on what you're focusing on and what you're making important in your life. And this is going to be this next category is going to be one that's going to probably upset some of you, but let's just go ahead and get into it. We're going to be talking about ideologies and religion. And when I say that, I'm not talking about Christianity necessarily, but when I say religion, I'm talking about like the how how do I put this? Like the ritualistic aspects of religion. You can get so caught up in doing things a certain way, and like, well, we've always done it this way, and all the traditions that you grew up with and stuff like that. And then ideologies, that would be like your different like philosophies, or how you see the world through a specific lens. Like if you call yourself an Arminian or a Calvinist or a traditionalist, Molinist, provisionist, whatever, open theist. There's all kinds of different labels, things that you could call yourself, and that might go in with the identity one as well. But those are different types of ideologies, and if you get stuck in one of those and you think, well, okay, this is the best way to interpret Scripture, or this is this is what brings the most glory to God, it begins to make you prideful. Not only does it make you prideful, but it also limits your capacity for learning, because if someone else comes along that is not in that category of like denomination or specific ism that you follow or something like that, then there might be someone outside of your particular group that thinks a little bit differently, that may have something very valuable for you to learn, some very valuable wisdom, but it's going to in psychological terms, that's called reciprocal narrowing. And basically it means that what you're able to receive becomes narrower, like your channel for receiving becomes very narrow, because you're seeing everything through a specific lens. They talk about having like rose-colored glasses or something like that. And if you see something in a particular way and you're not open to basically, and I'm not saying like be open to any kind of religion or teaching or things like that, but basically having an open mind and not just dismissing anyone who isn't in your specific group or your specific denomination. You've probably heard the term, chew up the meat and spit out the bones. And that principle needs to be used whenever we are engaging with anything, whether it's something from your own denomination's teachings or from anyone else. And I'm just going to tell you this: your own denomination is wrong in some areas. My denomination is wrong in some areas. Actually, I don't claim a specific denomination. I go to a Baptist church, but I don't claim to be a Baptist. Not because I'm against Baptists or anything, but just because I prefer to just call myself a Christian. And if you call yourself a Baptist or a Mennonite or a Lutheran or Catholic or whatever, fine, do that, as long as you're pursuing God and the Bible, and you're trying to glorify God in all things that you do. I have no problem with whatever you want to call yourself as far as your denomination, but personally I prefer to just be called a Christian, because I don't like to be narrowed to just one set of ideologies or practices, and that tends to make us like rivalrous and divisive and things like that, where we should be trying to learn from each other, and things like that. Okay, and so the next category that I'm going to be talking about is accomplishments. A lot of times we can idolize our own accomplishments, like you might have, like, say you've got a specific you got a promotion at your work, or you got like a really good job or something like that, and or maybe you're elected to a certain office in the government, or you have a you've just done some really good things. Well, a lot of times we can idolize those things. Like, we can live for our accomplishments, and we love to see other people praise us and for our accomplishments. And when that's a focus of yours, it can be an idol, and we need to look out for that. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that specific one, but I just think it is important to mention that. And then another thing is that we can be one of the things we can idolize a lot of times is our behavior or lifestyle. And when I'm talking about specifically like the way you live your life, like maybe you have certain higher standards than other people, like you don't go to the movie theaters, or you don't listen to rock and roll music, you don't listen to any kind of music with a beat, you don't go to restaurants with bars in them, you don't wear certain kinds of clothes, or anything like that. I could give you lots of different examples. Maybe I don't know. I think I've listed several there that you could consider as like lifestyle and standards, and that just I think I've said enough pretty much there to summarize. But if your identity is wrapped up in all those things, if you make those things of such a high importance that you don't, I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of tongue-tied here, but if those things become so important to you that that you're not just focusing on God, and you're not focusing on growth and transformation and things like that, well, first of all, if that's the most important things to you is your behavior and your lifestyle, you're going to be focusing on that more than you are on growing and helping others and making a difference in this world. Nobody ever made much of a difference by making sure that they always wore the right clothes and things like that, or that they never watched a rated R movie, or that they never did this or that. They never got a tattoo in their lives or anything like that. So just think about those things. Behavior is important. Lifestyle is important, obviously. I'm not against those things, but we shouldn't be making those so important to us that we neglect our own growth, and we neglect our capacity for helping others. And then the last one I'm going to mention is that we can tend to idolize is other people, which we can tend to spend we can I see people a lot of times, lifting up these different people's names like they're, these great giants of the faith and things like that. And can we recognize people for, value that they bring? Maybe maybe they are great teachers, or maybe they do have great information, or they're just a great, a very good person. They've been a great help to us personally. But when you make those people, you put them up on a pedestal, and they're now like your idol, that's going to it's not going to be good for you, because you're going to start to identify with them, and then when something bad happens to them, then it starts to make your world crumble. And basically just don't put stuff before God. I think that's the summary of this episode is, don't make anything as important as God or of more importance. And to be honest, guys, I'm just going to be honest with you, and I think we can all be honest with ourselves, that we've all done these things to one extent or another. We've all committed idolatry in one sense or another in our lives. And a lot of these things that I'm telling you is from personal experience. I wouldn't be going through this list of sins, of the 7 deadly sins of American Christianity, if I didn't struggle with them myself at one point. But that's the beauty of life. You know, we learn, we grow, we make mistakes, we fall down, but we pick ourselves back up and we grow and we learn to be better. And it's not to make ourselves not to show off or to tell people, hey, I'm better than you, or I got my life together and you need to be more like me, or anything like that. I know that there's plenty of you watching this channel that probably have your act together way better than I do. So I'm definitely not trying to tell anyone to be like me or to imitate my life as an example. Just imitate Christ. You can't go wrong there by conforming to the image of Christ. Make him the center of your worship and your love. And if you do that, then you won't have any problems in these areas that we talked about. So I appreciate you watching, if you've watched through this video, and I hope that you've enjoyed this content. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless.